The reason why I kept Juice in my name wasn't only for Tupac. It was for 3 rappers, actually. Tupac, Soulja Boy had an old tape called the Juice Mixtape, and then the MC.
These rappers, once pillars of the hip-hop world, helped define an entire genre with their groundbreaking music. Tragically, the same high-stakes lifestyle that brought them fame also exposed them to some of its darkest realities, including addiction and violence. Still, their legacy lives on. You can't talk about iconic rappers without mentioning Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD's meteoric rise was undeniable. When he dropped Lucid Dreams, it instantly became a cultural phenomenon, a track that was both innovative and emotionally raw. The music video, directed by Cole Bennett, signaled his arrival as a force to be reckoned with in the industry. Lucid Dreams quickly climbed the charts, and soon Juice was collaborating with some of the biggest names in music. For a moment, he seemed poised to dominate the mainstream, a star born from the SoundCloud era who was destined for greatness. But while his artistry was soaring, his personal struggles loomed large. From an early age, Juice battled addiction. He started drinking lean in middle school and was always open with fans about his struggles. Rather than glorifying his substance use, his music served as a candid reflection on the toll it took on his life and mental health. Juice WRLD's songs were often a window into the reality of living with addiction, resonating with listeners who related to his pain and admired his honesty. His openness only deepened his fans' connection to him. Although his time was cut short, Juice WRLD's influence is undeniable. He didn't just create hits, he sparked a movement. His ability to blend vulnerability, creativity, and sheer talent made him a legend in the making. Tragically, he never got the chance to fully experience the fruits of his labor, but his contributions to music continue to inspire a new generation of artists and fans alike. And that's what makes it even more heartbreaking. Just 2 weeks before he planned to enter rehab, Juice WRLD's life came to an abrupt, tragic end. It happened on December 8, 2019. Juice WRLD was on a flight from Los Angeles to Chicago, unaware of the chaos about to unfold. As soon as his plane landed, a swarm of federal agents stormed his private jet, tipped off by suspicions of drugs and firearms on board. What the authorities found was overwhelming, something far beyond their initial expectations. Witnesses said Juice took several pills shortly before the agents arrived. Moments later, he suffered a violent seizure. Despite being rushed to the hospital and given emergency treatment, it was too late. At only 21 years old, Juice WRLD passed away from a fatal overdose. This tragic moment came eerily close to the release of his hauntingly prophetic track, Legends. In the song, Juice lamented how many of his friends were dying too young, even predicting he wouldn't live past 21. The song itself was dropped just 1 day after the passing of another iconic figure, XXXTentacion, another artist gone too soon all over a designer bag. When Look at Me blew up, XXXTentacion's rise was meteoric. He transformed from a relatively unknown SoundCloud artist to a driving force behind the platform's domination of hip-hop. The track became a global phenomenon, blasted in clubs, replayed endlessly online, and racking up hundreds of millions of views. Suddenly, XXX's face was everywhere, cementing his place as a pioneering figure of the SoundCloud generation. During this period, XXXTentacion wasn't exactly a public darling. Controversy surrounded him, fueled by his unfiltered, brash behavior and repeated legal troubles, including a widely reported domestic abuse case involving his girlfriend. His music, too, was polarizing. His breakout hit, Look at Me, was followed by a series of aggressive, high-energy tracks that appealed to some but alienated others. However, X didn't just stay in one lane. As time went on, he delved into emo rap, exploring raw, emotional themes that gave his music a distinctive edge. While this shift pushed away some listeners, it also cultivated a fiercely loyal fan base that connected deeply with his vulnerability and authenticity. As he matured, X's music began to reflect a more introspective side. With his album 17, he transitioned from chaotic mosh anthems to emotionally charged, meaningful tracks like Jocelyn Flores, a tribute to a friend who tragically ended her own life after struggling with depression. This evolution showcased a deeper, more thoughtful artist than many had initially perceived. In the music industry, this growth didn't go unnoticed. Major figures like J. Cole and Kanye West praised him as a rare talent, elevating his status among his peers. Even in his personal life, X seemed to be turning a new leaf, adopting a more reflective attitude and working to make amends for his past mistakes. When his album dropped, it was a resounding success, debuting at #1 on the Billboard 200. For a moment, it seemed X had the world at his feet. But then, in a devastating twist, everything fell apart. Not long before the tragic robbery, one of the suspects had spotted X at a probation office and recognized his BMW i8. Later, when the group saw X's car at the dealership, they seized the opportunity to set their cruel plan in motion. The most heartbreaking detail? Security footage revealed that the fatal shooting happened after the robbery was already over. The thieves had already taken everything they wanted from X's car. As they walked away, one of them turned back, locked eyes with X, and made the devastating decision to shoot. Multiple shots ended X's life. The 4 men responsible were soon apprehended and now face prison sentences, with some serving life without parole. Despite his short time in the spotlight, Tentacion left an indelible mark on music. His influence echoes even now, much like Mac Miller's enduring legacy. But where X's story was defined by violence, Mac's was one of a long, painful battle with addiction, a struggle that eventually led to his untimely death. Did you know that Mac Miller didn't start out with that name? He began making music at just 14 years old under the moniker Easy Mac. By 15, Mac was already set on pursuing a career in rap, leaving behind all other distractions to follow his passion. His first mixtape came at that time, and he even formed a group with a fellow Pittsburgh rapper, Beatty, before they ultimately went their separate ways. A year later, Easy Mac evolved into the Mac Miller we came to know and love. Under his new name, he started dropping mixtapes that quickly gained traction. In 2011, his project Best Day Ever featured Mac's first Billboard charting hit, setting the stage for what would become an influential and widely celebrated career. After the breakout success of Donald Trump, Mac Miller's star continued to rise. He became a Grammy-nominated artist, achieved platinum certification on his albums, and released a string of hit songs. Among these was the massive track The Way, a duet with Ariana Grande that dominated the airwaves and became one of the defining hits of the 2010s. However, as Mac climbed the ranks of the music world, he faced a relentless personal battle, one he spoke openly about in both his music and interviews. He struggled with substance abuse, which began with casual marijuana use, but gradually escalated to more dangerous drugs, including lean and cocaine. While there were moments where Mac managed to get clean, maintaining that sobriety proved difficult, as relapses often pulled him back into old habits. Near the end of his life, many believed Mac had finally turned a corner. In 2018, fans were optimistic that he was on a healthier path after weathering several relapses. But that year brought personal turmoil. In May, Mac and Ariana Grande ended their 2-year relationship, a breakup that was followed just days later by a DUI incident in which Mac crashed into a pole near his home. His blood alcohol level at the time was twice the legal limit. The public reaction was swift and harsh. Critics online and in the media once again focused on Mac's struggles with addiction, adding to the mounting pressure he already faced. Then, only a few months later, tragedy struck. In September 2018, Mac's assistant found him unresponsive in his Los Angeles home and called for help. Despite efforts to revive him, it was too late. Mac Miller passed away from an accidental overdose caused by a lethal combination of cocaine, fentanyl, and alcohol. But the story didn't end with Mac Miller's passing. In the aftermath of his death, law enforcement pursued a full-scale investigation that ultimately led to multiple arrests. Authorities determined that Mac's dealer knowingly sold him counterfeit oxycodone laced with the deadly opioid fentanyl. Following the trail, police identified not only the dealer, but also the supplier higher up the chain. It was a painstaking process, but the arrests brought some measure of accountability to the tragedy. However, just minutes from where Mac's life ended, another devastating, entirely preventable loss occurred, this time involving one of the most promising new stars in hip-hop, Pop Smoke. Rising seemingly out of nowhere, Pop Smoke's influence on Brooklyn drill music was monumental. What's even more incredible is how his career began, almost by accident. One day, Pop Smoke accompanied his friend Jay Guapo to a studio session. When Jay fell asleep, Pop, rather than letting the paid studio time go to waste, stepped up to the mic. His raw talent was instantly apparent, and that impromptu decision launched his journey as an artist. Through a series of connections, he met producer Rico Beats, who introduced him to Steven Victor, the founder of Victor Victor Worldwide. It was with this label that Pop signed his first deal. From then on, Pop Smoke became a force to be reckoned with. His breakout tracks, Welcome to the Party, Dior, Flexing, put him in the spotlight, while his debut mixtape, Meet the Woo, became a no-skip classic. Everything he released seemed to go viral. With a natural ear for what was trending, he became the face of the Brooklyn drill scene and drew comparisons to legendary figures like 50 Cent. After just a year in the game, Pop Smoke was being heralded as the next big thing in hip-hop. But just as his meteoric rise was gaining unstoppable momentum, tragedy struck. While on a vacation in Los Angeles, Pop Smoke's story took a devastating turn. Pop Smoke made a simple yet devastating mistake. He posted photos on Instagram that revealed the address of the Airbnb where he was staying. Less than a day later, someone acted on that information. In the early hours of the next morning, 5 hooded individuals broke into Pop's rental. While he was in the shower, they ambushed him. The home invasion turned into a robbery, and in a horrifying moment, Pop was shot and killed. Following a thorough police investigation, authorities arrested 5 suspects. Among them were 3 adults and 2 minors, including the shooter, a 15-year-old. Despite his tragic and untimely death, Pop Smoke remains a celebrated figure. Fans continue to honor his memory, treating him as if he never left. After only a brief time in the music industry, he cemented his status as a legend. It's heart-wrenching to imagine the heights he might have reached, if not for one social media post and the greed that ultimately took his life. Much like Pop Smoke, Tupac Shakur's death sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world, becoming one of the genre's most enduring mysteries. Tupac's influence and legacy extend far beyond his own era. He's often named as one of the greatest rappers of all time, not just by fans of hip-hop, but by music lovers across the board. Tupac's passion for the arts emerged early on. He attended the prestigious Baltimore School for the Arts, where he honed his craft and developed the unparalleled talent that would make him a cultural icon. In 1989, he began his professional career in New York before relocating to California. There, he rose to prominence as a trailblazer of the West Coast rap movement, leaving a mark on the industry that still resonates today. Tupac's influence remains as potent as ever. Decades after his death, his music is still among the most streamed worldwide, a testament to both his lyrical genius and his compelling personality. Tupac's impact wasn't just musical, he was a vocal advocate for social justice, using his platform to highlight the struggles of African American communities. His outspoken nature and activism set him apart from many of his peers, but it also placed him at the heart of one of hip-hop's most infamous feuds: Death Row Records on the West Coast versus Bad Boy Records on the East Coast. What began as a war of diss tracks spiraled into a deadly rivalry. Given his stature as the face of West Coast rap, one might think that Tupac's death was a direct result of the East Coast-West Coast beef. But allegedly, that's not the whole story. On September 7, 1996, after attending a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Tupac was with Suge Knight, his mentor and the powerful figure behind Death Row Records. While still at the hotel, one of Suge's associates, someone tied to gang activity, spotted a rival gang member. A fight broke out, with Suge, Tupac, and their crew jumping the rival. Later that night, as Tupac and Suge drove through the Las Vegas Strip, a white Cadillac pulled up beside their vehicle and unleashed a hail of bullets. Tupac was hit 4 times, suffering critical injuries. 6 days later, he passed away, cutting short a career that was still ascending toward even greater heights. In the years since Tupac's murder, speculation has run rampant. His death became a lightning rod for conspiracy theories, with fans and investigators alike piecing together conflicting stories about what really happened. Recently, new evidence suggested his killing was retaliation for that fateful fight at the MGM, but the case remains one of the most hotly debated mysteries in music history. One tragic misstep ended Tupac's life, and just months later, his former friend and greatest rival met a hauntingly similar fate. The notorious Big, or Biggie, was the defining voice of East Coast rap in the 1990s. Born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, Biggie spent his early years navigating the tough realities of his neighborhood. From a young age, he displayed a natural talent for rhyming, performing impromptu raps on street corners that drew local attention. But life on the streets derailed his musical ambitions for years. Biggie dropped out of school and turned to hustling to survive, which led to multiple arrests, one for weapons possession and another for dealing crack. After serving time for his dealing charges, he finally decided to focus on his music. Determined to turn his life around, Biggie poured his energy into creating his first demo tape. After countless hours of honing his skills, the tape landed in the hands of Sean "Diddy" Combs, then an ambitious executive at Uptown Records. Recognizing Biggie's extraordinary potential, Diddy signed him immediately. However, fate shifted again when Diddy was fired from Uptown. Undeterred, Diddy launched Bad Boy Records and brought Biggie along for the ride. At Bad Boy, Biggie's career began to flourish. Around this time, he also formed a close bond with Tupac, a friendship that would later unravel amid growing tensions. By 1994, the burgeoning East Coast-West Coast rivalry had transformed their relationship from camaraderie into one of the most infamous feuds in hip-hop history. The West Coast dominated the hip-hop scene until Biggie unleashed Juicy, a song that not only showcased his unparalleled lyrical prowess, but also marked a shift in the balance of power. For the first time in years, an East Coast rapper from Bad Boy Records climbed to the top of the charts. This wasn't the spark that ignited the East Coast-West Coast feud, but it certainly foreshadowed the rivalry's explosive potential. With Biggie as their champion, the East Coast had someone to rally around. Hip-hop fans nationwide began to embrace him, but the harmony didn't last. In 1995, a violent incident at a New York recording studio shattered the friendship between Tupac and Biggie. That day, while Pac was in the studio, he was robbed and shot multiple times. Following the attack, Tupac suspected that members of Bad Boy Records were involved, and any trust he had in Biggie evaporated. As the East Coast-West Coast rivalry escalated, the tension between Pac and Biggie became impossible to ignore. By 1996, their feud had reached a fever pitch. Biggie's stature as one of the biggest names in rap soared, but it wasn't enough to keep the peace. Later that year, Tupac was killed in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas. Though no solid evidence tied Biggie to the crime, whispers and accusations painted him as a suspect. Biggie adamantly denied any involvement, asserting that while they had their differences, he never wished harm on Pac. Ironically, the very finger-pointing that followed Tupac's murder foreshadowed what was to come for Biggie himself. A year later, after attending a party in California, Biggie's life took a devastating turn. While he and his entourage were stopped at a red light, a car pulled up beside them, setting the stage for yet another tragic loss in the hip-hop world. The driver lowered his window and unleashed a flurry of gunfire into Biggie's SUV, striking him with 4 fatal rounds, the exact number of shots that had ended Tupac's life less than a year earlier. The parallels between their deaths were eerie and left the world reeling. Biggie's murder remains unsolved, but the leading theory points to a retaliatory hit ordered by Suge Knight, who believed that someone from Bad Boy Records was behind Tupac's killing. Despite releasing only 2 studio albums, Biggie's legacy towers over the genre. His incredible talent and larger-than-life persona earned him a permanent place in the pantheon of hip-hop greats. He's often cited as the greatest of all time, a testament to the profound impact he made during his short career. After his passing, the industry took steps toward reconciliation. A peace summit was held in New York, attempting to end the deadly feud that had claimed 2 of rap's brightest stars. But the cycle of tragedy didn't stop there. In the early 2000s, the world lost another influential artist, Nipsey Hussle. Born in the tough streets of South Central Los Angeles, Nipsey grew up with his Ethiopian father and his mother, navigating an environment rife with gang activity. By the age of 14, he had joined the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips, an experience that shaped much of his later music and message. Rather than glorifying gang life, Nipsey used his platform to warn against it. He dedicated much of his career to building bridges between rival sets and inspiring change in his community. But ironically, it was his passion for music that first pushed him toward the streets. He sought to fund his studio sessions by any means necessary. By 17, Nipsey was releasing music professionally, starting with his debut mixtape Slossin' Boy Volume 1. This project marked the beginning of a remarkable, albeit tragically short career that would leave a lasting impact on both music and his community. Nipsey Hussle's debut mixtape, Slossin' Boy Volume 1, marked the beginning of a remarkable career. Though it started with a small local following, Nipsey quickly caught the attention of major artists. He collaborated with icons like Drake and West Coast legends such as Snoop Dogg. With each project, his momentum grew. Nipsey would go on to win 2 Grammy Awards and earn multiple platinum singles, solidifying his place as a hip-hop legend. Yet his impact extended far beyond music. What set Nipsey apart was his unwavering dedication to the community that shaped him. He became a beacon of hope and a positive role model for young black men from similar backgrounds. Nipsey often said that staying true to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, was key to making a real difference. He backed up those words with action, actively participating in community service, funding education initiatives, and denouncing gun violence in both his music and his outreach efforts. Nipsey poured significant resources into improving Crenshaw, supporting programs to give children better opportunities and help them avoid the pitfalls he himself once faced. This dedication made his brutal murder in 2019 all the more devastating, not just for hip-hop but for the entire Crenshaw community. His killer, Eric Holder, was a fellow member of the Rollin' 60s Crips. Their argument began at Nipsey's store, where Nipsey allegedly accused Eric of being a snitch. Enraged, Eric left, only to return 10 minutes later with a loaded weapon. He fired 10 shots at Nipsey before kicking him as he lay on the ground. The shocking act left the community reeling. Holder was later sentenced to 60 years to life in prison. In Nipsey Hussle, the world lost not just a brilliant artist, but a man deeply committed to uplifting his community. His legacy as a rapper, activist, and role model lives on, inspiring others to carry forward his vision of a better future.